Oh, yeah, cooler than a polar bear's toenails. It is the Sixers Talk podcast, brought to you by Wilmington University, WilmU Works, Danny Pommells, Noah Levick, our producer Ben Barry, in the cut like a Band-Aid. We are here at Rivers Casno, soaking in the atmosphere post-Valentine's Day. No love for the Sixers last night, though. A tough loss for them as we are at the All-Star break, limping to the All-Star break as the Sixers trying to get healthy. Miami wasn't healthy either last night, but it was one of those tight, close games all the way through, nip and tuck. The Sixers come out on the low side of it, unfortunately. How was your Valentine's Day, though, Noah? Was love in the air for you? Not to be in your personal business.
No, it was solid. Yeah, it was Sixers focused. The Outcast reference reminded me, DJ Ghost, the Sixers DJ.
Yes.
I noticed he incorporated the Spodioti Dopalicious beat during the offensive possessions, which I appreciated. So we'll see if that is to stay. But
I like how you rolled that name of that song off your tongue, bro. I don't know if I would have been able to.
I don't know.
Get it right the first time.
No, it's a catchy, great song.
Yeah.
The Valentine's Day was solid. Of course, the Sixers would have loved to have a victory to top it off, but they did not manage it. That said, I think, a lot to like in the first four games with Buddy Hield on the squad, as we'll get into. And as you said, some valuable time now to, they hope, get some players back. We had Tobias Harris, Anthony Melton, and Nico Batum as partial participants in the Tuesday practice, according to Nick Nurse. So you figure they are possibilities to return in the near future for the Sixers. And now 8 days before they've got another game on the schedule. And I think that's a very welcome break for this team. Yeah,
absolutely. Nick Nurse saying after the game that would be quite as much time off for him because he's going to Indianapolis to check out Maxey and the festivities Friday and Saturday, the game, and then planning for practice on Monday. So it's just kind of what comes with the territory. And the Sixers here with the Buddy Hield experience, 2 up and 2 down. Although they've lost 9 of their last 12, Noah, and they're sinking in the standings. Before we talk about Buddy as a unit overall here, as they still cling into that 6th position in the Eastern Conference.
Fifth
position.
In the East, yeah.
Same amount of losses as the Knicks were in 4th, but one less loss than who's in 6th. I think that's the Pacers still.
I think they're 2 ahead of Indy still.
Okay.
A half back of New York.
There we go.
And the Knicks have protested a game, so maybe we'll get news on that. That controversial ending they had against Houston, I believe. So, the standings are tight, and the Sixers, as you said, have not exactly done much to gain ground in the stretch leading into the All-Star break, where they've been super undermanned. But that will most definitely be a major storyline just during this time where Joel Embiid is sidelined. Can they avoid a slide down the standings? And where do they end up? They, of course, would love to not be a play-in team. I think that's priority number 1. And then the hope will be perhaps they can earn home court in round 1 of the playoffs. But one game at a time, and there's 28 left that they'll have on the docket post All-Star.
Yeah, less than 30 games here to go, and less than 30 games to go. Joel Embiid is expected back. Let's just say he misses the month of March. Maybe he comes back in April. There's maybe 10 games or so left to play. And they're in that play-in range. How hard should the Sixers be pushing it at that point, do you think? If they're, not one of the top 6 teams and they're in the play-in and Embiid comes back, what should be their modus operandi at that point? How hard would you push for them to – do you think they should push to try to be relevant and back into the mix?
I mean, I think the odds are still – in their favor that they will be a top 6 team. If they find themselves at 7 or 8 and the final stretch of the season, is ahead of them, I think you got to be pretty desperate to try to climb out of that position. just because, of course, the margin for error in the play-in tournament is really low, and you don't want to be in that spot. Yes, there are recent success stories of teams like the Miami Heat, soaring to the East Finals out of a play-in position. But I think the Sixers are upfront about that is pretty essential in their mind to avoid that position. And I think, look, there's been a lot of reasons to have greater confidence that that's possible now. I think Buddy Hield has looked like an outstanding fit on this team, and it does indeed seem that the health picture is going to improve after the All-Star break. So the pieces are here to, do what's necessary to avoid that undesirable spot, I think.
And you're going to face Boston or Milwaukee at some point. So whether it be second round.
Absolutely. If you want to get where you want to go, you got to beat those kinds of teams. And I think the Sixers have known that from the jump. Pretty wild to see Boston with a 6-game lead at the top of the conference at the All-Star break. So they've been head and shoulders above everyone else. But the Sixers will be focused on taking care of their business and fully understanding that if they want to get beyond the second round, do deep damage in the playoffs, you're probably going to have to get through the teams that are considered elite in this conference, and Boston is at the very top there.
Yes, they are, and the Sixers here trying to make their way. And you mentioned Buddy Hield, man, a guy that has come and hit the ground running night and day from what he was doing and how they were using him with the Pacers to where they're using him now. Let's just throw his numbers out there because they're impressive for sure. And he was averaging 12 points a game, and now he's averaging 22.3 through 4 games, 4 rebounds, 7.5 assists, 10 assists last night against the
career high.
Heat, career high.
Played a lot of games. That's in career high. Four games into his Sixers career.
52% from the floor, 45% from three. And he is a volume 3-point shooter, getting the shots up, and he's making them. And he looks comfortable, man. There's really not much to say about his time here. Like I said, a couple of games haven't gone the Sixers' way, but they have been in every one of them, partly because of the threat of the 3-point shot and the fact that they've, been making them. So what kind of grade are you giving him in these 4 games?
Oh, yeah, he's been an A minus at worst. Yeah, I mean, the defensive work, I think, for the team hasn't been sterling. He hasn't, been exceptional in that regard. I think the Sixers had some lax moments there where cutters got free last night or what have you. But yeah, no, he's been outstanding offensively. I think the efficiency in a spot where he's immediately thrown in there and playing like 40 minutes some of these games, pretty darn impressive. And I think you can't underrate some of the intangible impact as well, where he's making these cuts and he's, running around these staggered screens and he's setting these ghost screens for Tyrese Maxey. And there's just this perpetual movement. There's this like constant looming threat. And like I think with many players in the league, their threat level is a bit overestimated, right? Like there's just an instinct nowadays. We don't want to allow open 3-point shots. So therefore teams are wary of anyone who's a half-decent shooter beyond the arc. Buddy Hield, it is entirely appropriate that if defenses see him with a potential sliver of space, their alarm bells go off. I mean, the guy does not need really any room to let him fly. And as you said, he's been cooking thus far. But the passing has been a plus. I think Nick Nurse has said that's been a little bit of a pleasant surprise. Just how able he is to do productive things when teams take the 3 away, pump fakes, goes inside the arc, and makes a good play for one of his teammates. So I think it's been everything the Sixers envisioned thus far. Then once the playoffs roll around, some of those questions about what level of defense will he bring to the table, those become a little bit bigger. And some of the fit questions will be a little more complicated when the Sixers are a fully healthy team. Exactly what lineups is he best in?
Absolutely.
Where does DeAnthony Melton slot in this picture? Of course, Kyle Lowry, what kind of role does he have on this squad? What lineups is he in, et cetera. But Buddy Hield, just the first 4 games, couldn't have asked for much more. And the Sixers didn't end things on a winning note here before the break, but pretty fantastic win in Cleveland, the number 2 team in the East. And he was a giant reason why. I mean, he just took over there for a stretch in the fourth quarter. And I think, getting a win against a team that had 17 of 18 victories, no one really expected that. And Hield is a very big reason that was possible for the Sixers. Just did everything they could have possibly asked in that game, and a little bit of an upset win, early in his tenure here.
Oh, for sure. And it's funny because I'm sure Nick Nurse and the staff are just salivating at all the ideas and ways they can use Buddy when Joel Embiid comes back. I mean, so many people remember fondly the action he and J.J. Redick had that they haven't had a shooter of that caliber since Redick, and Hield. And it's funny, you think about him and Maxey in the backcourt and, Buddy playing with Tyrese Halliburton. He's almost 10 years older than these guys. So it's a different dynamic, and that you don't quite, wrap your head around until you see them out there on the floor together, that, Tyrese definitely isn't, deferring to Hield in any way. And I think that shows a lot of growth in Tyrese, because we had seen that a lot with his relationship with Harden and Embiid in the past. And that's a thing of the past. But it's funny that Buddy is so much older. I don't know if I think of them that way before seeing them on the court together. But did that dawn on you in their relationship or how they're interacting with each other?
Yeah, I mean, definitely Buddy Hield. He's accumulated a lot of experience over the years, and I think you just sense his gratitude to be in this spot with a player who is as electric as Tyrese Maxey and is so ridiculously speedy as a downhill driver. And yeah, he was enjoying things in Indiana in terms of the pace. That team played very, very fast, had a lot of ways they could beat you, loved playing in transition. So I think he's had a good time here without Joel Embiid, where the Sixers are emphasizing pace, and Maxey is, fully capable of being really productive with that style. But yeah, I think just he's playing that style here, but he's also being asked to take more shots and play a lot more minutes, and he doesn't mind that whatsoever. He said last night that's part of the challenge of the NBA, and that's part of what's fun about it, is you're always adjusting, and you're always trying to figure out how you can excel in a new situation. And I think a lot about this new situation has been great, in his eyes thus far. It's still, I think, a bit of a whirlwind. Had zero time to get his head around everything that's new here. But I think playing next to a young all-star who is, as fun-loving and charismatic and skilled as Tyrese Maxey, that's been something that Buddy Hield has taken very well to.
Here we are at the All-Star break. Kyle Lowry waiting in the wings, going to rejoin this team after they returned from the break with a daunting schedule ahead of them, another revenge game. I'm sure the Cavs will have something in store for them coming back here, as well as matchups with the Bucks and the Celtics, and I think the Knicks as well.
Knicks are first up. Yeah.
So with all that said, it's interesting to think that the Sixers end up getting Kyle Lowry in the buyout market, and then these reports surface that not only was Morey had his fingers on the pulse of getting Buddy Hield to Philadelphia, but supposedly he was reaching out and putting feelers out to the Lakers for LeBron James, for guys like Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, or Bradley Beal in Phoenix. When you hear that Daryl Morey's kicking the tires on guys like that, does that make you feel like he's just doing his due diligence? Is he setting the table for this summer? How do you process that as a Sixers fan?
Just how he operates. I honestly don't think it makes sense to read into it as something exceptional for Daryl Morey. That's just his MO. When we say he's making all the calls and exploring all the possibilities,
we really mean it.
that's Exhibit A, right? I think he surely knew the odds were not high that Rob Pelinka would be receptive to trading away LeBron James. And of course, that was not the case. LeBron had sent out that cryptic hourglass tweet, and Morey said, "Hey, let me see what that means. Let me see what's up here." But yeah, if we're looking ahead and trying to say what is significant about it, yes, the intent with all of that cap space will be to at least see if it's possible to acquire true star level talent. And often it's just not feasible. And Daryl Morey doesn't like to get beaten in trades. He doesn't like to hand out foolish long contracts to aging players and things along these lines. But if there's a way to make the Sixers meaningfully better, and it involves a star, yep, he's going to be making those calls. He's going to be putting pressure on other executives, and he's going to see what's possible. I think in the NBA, you often don't know how to predict what stars will shake free or what's next. And I think this is a decent example of that, right? Like Morey thought, hey, maybe this is a spot where surprisingly LeBron James doesn't want to be in LA anymore, and he indeed thinks it's his due diligence to see what all the tweets mean and to make all the calls. And as far as viability, seemed like there was never any real chance that any of those stars you just named would have become Sixers at the deadline. But Morey had to make the calls, and that's, I think the main takeaway for me is that is how he does business. He's been really consistent about that style of, being a lead executive for quite a while.
With speaking of the front office, there was a report from Keith Pompey that the Charlotte Hornets were hot and heavy after Elton Brand. Would that be a big loss for the 76ers? We've seen Elton in different roles here with the organization, doing more of the day-to-day basketball stuff as far as the roster and personnel is concerned. Do you think that if Elton Brand were to ever leave, reportedly he's staying in Philadelphia and loves being here, et cetera, but would that be a big loss for the organization? Right,
as you said, Keith Pompey, the Enquirer, reported that he's sticking around. It would definitely change the dynamic up in the front office significantly. Daryl Morey has a lot of respect for Elton Brand and relies on him for a lot of these communications with other teams. And I think, of course, Morey's the guy sometimes getting other executives a little irritated with the outlandish requests or, sometimes doing business in ways that isn't super pleasant. And Elton Brand, meanwhile, is coming from this place of steadiness, and he's like a good guy who's trying to handle the negotiations in all the right ways and with integrity. And I think there's something to be said for that dynamic just on an interpersonal level, that like kind
of a yin and yang type thing.
A little bit, yeah. I think they've figured it out in their partnership. How they should divide responsibilities and what Elton Brand is best at, how they can lean on his strengths, et cetera. I mean, look, his tenure leading the basketball operations, I think we can unequivocally say it was unsuccessful. But I think as we've said before, that was very complicated in terms of who deserves the blame. The Sixers were really determined to have a highly collaborative front office. I think there was a decent degree of murkiness in terms of, who had what responsibilities, how they should make big decisions, who should hold power meaningfully. So Elton Brand, in his first shot at that role, in a pretty difficult situation, ultimately the Sixers made some poor decisions as far as overpaying and putting a lot of chips right in the Al Horford and Tobias Harris baskets. But I think
Jimmy Butler here
got the Jimmy Butler trade done. I think that was definitely a bold move that gave the Sixers a really good chance to get beyond the second round, were it not for Kawhi Leonard's memorable shot. But I think Brand, all evidence is that he's an important piece of this team's front office structure, that Daryl Morey really values his presence, that ownership is, still a big fan of his. And if he were to leave, I think that would change things in a big way. And it would be, I think a task to go about replacing that presence. But yeah, not something it sounds like we need to consider in the near future. Sounds like he's pretty locked in here, pretty happy with the role he has now, and both him and Daryl Morey enjoy their partnership and are pretty optimistic about the future of the Sixers. I think they most definitely like the work they did at the deadline. Yes, Morey was making those superstar calls, but again, he came out with the statement of Buddy Hield was the best player traded at the deadline. And 4 games in, he's got some good evidence to support that claim.
And do you feel like Buddy's looking at this as an audition? Do you feel like Buddy is in Daryl Morey's summer plans as far as a guy that they would want to retain? How much of that is likely or unlikely?
Yeah. I mean, I think if Buddy Hield is good in the postseason, he will have,
which he's never played in,
which he has never played in. But if he's good there, he'll have suitors, he'll have teams around the league who are willing to give him a decent amount of money. But I think absolutely the notion that Hield can fit very well next to the Sixers' 2 All-Stars is a big reason why Morey made this deal. And I don't think they're going to be willing to pay him an infinite amount of money to re-sign with the Sixers. But I think as things stand, if it goes as intended, the Sixers will be very open to the idea of Buddy Hield sticking around here. Still, he's 31 years old. And I don't think it's outlandish to think that there are some good prime sort of years ahead of Hield, but a lot to be seen there. And audition-wise, the spotlight is going to be hottest in the playoffs, and that's what the Sixers and everyone around the league are going to care most about when they're evaluating Buddy Hield's upcoming free agency.
Let's pay some bills here on the Sixers Talk podcast. Of course, we are brought to you by Wilmington University, our title sponsor. Find your higher education home at Wilmington University, where your academic success is celebrated by a caring community. Explore your opportunities at wilmu.edu. Celebrity cook Steve Martirano brings his Italian-American cooking back home to Philly. Enjoy Martirano's Prime at Rivers Casino and Steve's famous meatballs with Sunday gravy, prime steaks, and more. Make reservations for Martirano's Prime on Open Table. Back here on the Sixers Talk podcast, we are at the halfway point, theoretically, as we are less than 30 games left in the season. Hopefully the Sixers can come back, as you mentioned, Noah, healthier than they are now. DeAnthony Melton was playing 3-on-3. Is that true? And
yep.
How is the back doing for him? I know that's probably the worst injury of the injuries that players are working through.
I'd say Robert Covington and Joel Embiid would be more significant injuries, right? They're expected to be out longer term. But backs can be tricky, and DeAnthony Melton has been good evidence of that, of course. His return to play did not go as planned. Yeah, he indeed was doing some 3-on-3 post-practice scrimmaging, and that actually included a bit of full court, which I thought was an encouraging little sign. My sense is as long as there are no setbacks, I don't see any good reason why he would be out, when the Sixers return to action. But clearly there's been a lot of caution there with him and with Nico Batum as well, who's, a 35-year-old player who's dealing now with a second hamstring injury of the season. I think my sense is Melton is slowly trending up. And the way Nick Nurse was talking, they expect to have multiple players back in the mix as soon as they return to action post All-Star. And I think he will be appreciative of that, actually having some tough decisions as opposed to now where it's like my rotation is whoever's healthy. I think once they get Melton, Batum, et cetera, back in the mix, now you actually have to say, all right, like who is my backup for, how do I want to divvy up these backup point guard minutes with Kyle Lowry, added to the picture, et cetera. I think, actually seeing it is important, but everything besides, seeing DeAnthony Melton back in games has suggested to me that he is on track to return, and it doesn't sound like they see Batum's hamstring injury as super concerning as well, as evidenced by him, being a partial participant in that practice. And it does seem like he is also, doing the all ramp up to get back in games.
Do you feel like Melton is still in the Sixers' future plans? Of course, his past year and a half has been fun to watch, and he's come a long way and really close with Tyrese Maxey, and they've formed a good tandem in the backcourt at times, particularly when the Sixers have needed it. But that his injury hasn't changed any of his future consideration to stick around with this team on an expiring contract.
I think I would again lean on a lot's going to hinge on what happens for him the rest of the season, including the playoffs. I mean, I think, look, the Sixers most definitely got better offensively, as we said they needed to at the trade deadline, but we've seen obvious defensive holes in the last stretch of games where you say, man, it would be nice to have DeAnthony Melton to take that star guard assignment. It would be nice to have Melton to force a timely steal here or there and juice our transition offense up a little bit.
So maybe his absence has elevated his need, his
perhaps. I mean, at least for me, it's made me a little more aware of
what he brings to the table,
this isn't a perfect player by any means, but yeah, he's a valuable role guy for this team in a variety of ways, and I think he will be eager to show that once he's back out there. So yeah, I think for him, needs to prove that he can be healthy for a sustained stretch and that the back injury is behind him. And then absolutely, if he's doing good stuff on both ends of the court and fulfilling the, Mr. Do Everything nickname, then he's a guy you've got to at least consider as a potential long-term piece for the Sixers. But I think there are so many permutations there for their offseason, and there will be many names they consider, both on the star level and the sub-star level. But yeah, I think there's a good chance that DeAnthony Melton will noticeably improve this team's defense once he is back healthy for the Sixers.
Valentine's Day was yesterday. Let's try to show a little love to those who deserve it here on the Sixers roster. Paul Reed last night. Let's just go back to the Cavs game. Gigantic block on Donovan Mitchell. So timely was the block that Mo Bamba cleared out people to get to Paul Reed to dap him up, to show love to how well he did there, saving the game for the Sixers and preserving what looked like was going to be a Cavs comeback, the way they kind of scored like almost 10 points in like 1 minute of play. But what have you been most impressed by with Paul Reed here, and what kind of grade would you give him here in the first half of the season?
First half of the season, I'd lean toward like B plus overall. I think the last 5 games has been a solid A, rock solid A. So as far as most impressed with,
hit a nice 3 last night.
Yeah, that's always nice to see. But I think he's largely played within himself, been like aggressive and impactful defensively without going for wild gambles, without biting on pump fakes, which Bam Adebayo has historically gotten him to do. I think
the foul trouble was such an issue for him, and he seemed to overcome some of that. And they've needed more of him than he probably expected and the team expected. Yeah.
I mean, this last 5 games has been easy A stuff for him, and he's grabbed multiple offensive rebounds in every game that he's started since the Joel Embiid injury. So, that is unequivocally like a big strength of his game. He is just, flat out elite at that in the NBA. So I think that, that has all been really good. He's kind of showed what he's best at, and he's eliminated a lot of the weaker areas from his game, and he's not tried to do too much. I think one great, evidence of that is just 2 turnovers in the last 8 games. And we know Nick Nurse is all about winning the possession game, and Paul Reed has helped the Sixers do that by grabbing these offensive boards and not doing anything foolish or careless with the basketball. So, yeah, I think he had some ups and downs early in this year, even little moments where Nick Nurse reasonably went to Mo Bamba over him. But I think now it's been a straightforward call for Nick Nurse. Paul Reed is our starting center, and he's worthy of playing in, the high 30s some of these games. I think he got 39 last night, and he deserved every one of those minutes. And I think, the B plus B grade for the halfway point feels a little harsh, just given how excellent he's been in the recent stretch when the Sixers, as you said, have needed some dependability, which has often like not been a strong suit of his game. He's often been a little erratic, a little unpredictable, but no, like you've known what you're going to get from him lately. He's going to be like a double-double guy who's pretty efficient, who's running some nice pick and rolls here and there with Buddy Hield, and who's just doing all the things that make Paul Reed valuable in the NBA, and not doing some of the things that make coaches pull their hair out. And Nick Nurse also said it, which I thought was interesting. Like his professionalism has been really good lately. He's understood why he's been in games and why he's been out of games. He's taken criticism and coaching to heart, and I think he's given the Sixers what they've been looking for, and they'll hope it continues post All-Star.
Let's not forget, man, this guy caused a bit of an uproar among Sixers fandom, some polarizing opinions when the Utah Jazz offered him that offer sheet and the Sixers matched it. Mm-hmm. And from that point to now, it seems like an excellent decision. I mean, for them to retain his services, particularly with what's happened with Joel Embiid, and when we thought they had a bevy of guys who were playing that front court position, but it seems that he's continued to rise to the top among that group, and give him credit for his growth and the sustainability that he's brought to that front court.
Yeah, I think definitely just looking at it big picture.
I can't see him in the Utah Jazz.
No, that's an odd image. But yeah, like you look at their center situation conundrum this offseason, you would very obviously have Paul Reed start in all these games as opposed to Mo Bamba or Montrezl Harrell. Like that just sounds ridiculous to even think of it as a toss-up or whatever. I think no doubt the Sixers are grateful that they retained Paul Reed, and I think you still see that he's developing mentally, right, and with the approach and with the understanding of exactly how he can be best for the Sixers. Sometimes, as Doc Rivers preached as well, less is more, and I think he's embraced that lately. And a less is more approach for him has often kind of coincide with really good production, just because he's so darn active, he's so athletic, he hustles so much, and he's just got such a knack for grabbing rebounds. And he gave them 18 and 12 last night, and I think played an outstanding final game before the break.
A lot of love deservedly goes Tyrese Maxey's way. All-star in the three-point contest. So many moments where he's been Mr. Dependable here for the 76ers. And it's kind of weird when we're talking about grades for like other players on the team, because so many guys have missed time. Guys who had contributed and helped the Sixers, get to the amount of wins they have so far this season aren't here. Like, Marcus Morris, who has played some good minutes and was big for them at times. And Pat Bev is gone. Kelly Oubre missed almost a month of time with that rib injury. So it's interesting, like Paul Reed and Maxey have been like the mainstays, for this team. Is there anyone who's been unsung that you think deserves a little bit more praise? I mean, Jaden Springer's not here. He had, brought them some good minutes. And apparently Pat Bev, worth mentioning, is headhunting Kyle Lowry after if you listen to the Pat Bev pod at all, after the All-Star break, they paid February 25th, and Pat Bev is like, you know what? They traded me because they were going to pick up Kyle Lowry, and watch out, Kyle. I'm coming your way.
Yes. Yeah, that's a matchup to circle, most definitely. Yeah, look, Paul Reed's the only guy who's played in every game, and I think Tyrese Maxey has missed 4 or 5, but he's indeed been pretty much a mainstay.
Tweaked his ankle last night and came back.
Yes, yeah, there was definitely an injury scare there for him, but sounds like things are all right, and we can expect to see him in the All-Star events. So yeah, as far as unsung players, I mean, I definitely think Nico Batum was very valuable, and it didn't always reflect in the statistics when he was healthy.
That's the thing, is like you can say that about 6 guys on the team who are or aren't in the lineup from time to time. But I mean, I think for me, Batum's like a pretty solid
guy to put under that, like, you feel his absence category, right? Like, I think especially before the trade deadline, when Buddy Hield was not yet a Sixer, you saw how the offense could look pretty labored, and they didn't have guys capable of making an entry pass to Tobias Harris in the post, or they didn't have players who could make that sensible one more pass, or who could throw some of those good hit ahead passes or what have you. So I thought Nico Batum was a strong addition, that they got via the James Harden deal. And I think he gave the Sixers a lot to like, but now they are waiting on him to be available again. So, yeah, I think Nick Nurse has done plenty of trying to patch everything together. There haven't been many players who he knows he can, right into that lineup every night. Paul Reed's been the only one, so I think it's actually, very appropriate to give him the love we have here. And we're not saying that Paul Reed has nothing left to work on, or that he's a sterling rim protector who's replaced everything that Joel Embiid brought to the table, or anything like that.
But he's played his role.
He's been a very good version of Paul Reed in the last week or two, and overall he's been a pretty good player for the Sixers in the first half of the season, and it's definitely a good thing that they retained him, and that he has stayed healthy. I think if Paul Reed had not stayed healthy, then you would have been leaning a lot more on Mo Bamba and small ball, and I think it's been obvious that though Bamba has had bright spots, he's had big blocks, etc. You can't count on him in the same way that you can Paul Reed, and I think that's a compliment to Reed in some ways too. That he's gotten to this place in his career where he has certain aspects of his game that are just super dependable, on top of the 100% durability thus far.
I think we'd be remiss if we didn't heap some love onto Nick Nurse and give him some props. You're coming into the situation with James Harden and his disgruntledness, and able to survive that. Joel Embiid's injury, implementing this new system, getting all these guys to buy in. Tyrese Maxey's progression has not fallen off one bit under his regime. Maybe even blossomed more possibly than he would have in Doc Rivers' system, but that's arguable. Survived all of the injuries, the trade deadline stuff. As far as coaches go, he's been able to really kind of stand in the eye of the storm here and weather everything that's come his way. What kind of grade would you give Nick Nurse here after almost halfway through, more than halfway through?
Yeah. I think you don't want to be too harsh, because they've lost 22 games, and it's felt like 15 or 16 of them, it would have been miraculous if they won. They were so shorthanded. I think you give them a lot of credit for meaningfully implementing a style of play, and it hasn't just been amorphous stuff about effort, or about defensive variety, or just the team feeling different. No, they're winning the possession game so consistently these days, and that's giving them a chance in a lot of games maybe they have no business being in, or they're a little more competitive than they otherwise would have been, just because they're great at taking care of the ball. They have some defensive disruptiveness at their best. They can score in transition better than they were last year. A lot of this, the head coach deserves credit for. Look, it was a really tough stretch recently, but I think he kept the composure. I think he complimented his team when it was appropriate and they were just losing. And I think he also got on the Sixers when it made sense. They had that stretch where
effort wasn't quite there.
Yeah. Sure that there were valid excuses, but the transition defense was lapsing, and the ball movement wasn't very good, and they weren't closing out on shooters, and they were just failing at a lot of the fundamentals, and he called it as he saw it and got ticked off at his team. And then, of course, his team responded to that, which is exactly what you want to see from a head coach, taking on a new role and trying to get buy-in from all his new players. So, I don't think Nurse has been flawless. I think there's always spots where you can say oh, this rotation decision didn't pay off, or maybe he leaned a little too much on, Tobias Harris in this spot, or, maybe he should have taken a little more off Tyrese Maxey's plate here when Maxey was having a tough game, whatever. But I think for me, an A- feels about right. They're not, at the very top of the Eastern Conference. They're still well below 500 without Joel Embiid. But I think by and large, it's obvious that he's done a very good job coaching this team, and that he has shown a lot of his strengths in these shorthanded situations when they need to throw junk defenses at some teams, and they need to mix things up. Yes, it hasn't yielded as many wins as the Sixers have wanted to, but we've seen the ways in which Nick Nurse is very comfortable in those spots, and I think it gives you some optimism that even with Embiid sidelined, they can start stacking some wins in the post-All-Star stretch.
Yes, they can, and hopefully that is what we come to expect here when they return to the court, and a tough few games here when they get back to it. So they could, quickly go from where they are in the standings to into the play-in if things don't go their way here against the Knicks, the Bucks, the Cavs, and the Celtics. So a lot to pay attention to here. Good luck to Tyrese Maxey here at the All-Star Weekend. We will be watching. Noah, what's your All-Star Weekend going to consist of?
Yeah, so I'll be tuning in and recapping, all things Tyrese Maxey. Also, we'll have a look in the next couple of days at some of those many rotation questions. The possibility that Ricky Council IV still finds himself with the role and the Sixers are healthier, and some of those things that Nick Nurse will need to sort out as far as Kyle Lowry's spot on this team and how all the minutes will be divvied up. But I will be checking out Maxey and his first All-Star experience, and seeing if he can become the first Sixer to win the three-point contest. As I said a few days back, I think it wouldn't shock me. Kid likes the spotlight. He's in that contest for a reason, and I'm sure it'll be an entertaining night Saturday, and then the All-Star game itself on Sunday night.
Before we get out of here, I neglected to get some time in with Ricky Council, and is his role changing in a significant way that we should expect him to be a part of the rotation when everybody is still healthy? Or
I think it's possible. So Nurse basically said, as the team stands now, they kind of have more guards, and they've traded away like Marcus Morris and players like that who were taking on backup 4 minutes. So as Nurse framed it, like KJ Martin and Ricky Council IV both have a chance to earn some backup 4 minutes even when this team is healthy. And I think Council has helped his case a lot in the last 3 games. You can see he's just so physically strong, has infinite self-belief. And has a lot of maturity for an NBA rookie. So
if he and KJ Martin are competing for the same minutes, is he in front of KJ, do you think?
No, I mean, I don't think there's one guy
We've seen KJ start the last 2 games.
Yeah, and I think KJ Martin has some more NBA experience, which Nick Nurse values, and he's been really good too. He's thrown down some of those highlight dunks. He's shown some ability to be an asset in the pick and roll, to
finish under duress.
Yeah, defensively versatile. He's crafty operating out of that dunker spot. If you had to handicap the race, maybe KJ Martin would have a slight edge. Maybe there will be nights where it's not either or. But Nick Nurse basically left open the possibility that one or both of those players could get minutes behind Tobias Harris, and just sort of at that 3-4 backup position. And then of course there's times that Mo Bamba has not been preferred over KJ Martin. They've liked Martin as a small ball center. So these are some of the things that I'll be diving into and trying to predict with the Sixers. But I think bottom line, Ricky Council IV, KJ Martin, both guys who could be in the mix for the Sixers even when they're significantly healthier. And I think that's a credit to both who have done some nice work heading into the break.
Be sure to follow along with Noah's work at NBCSportsPhiladelphia.com. Follow him on social media at Noah Levick. And that does it for the Sixers Talk podcast, brought to you by Wilmington University. WilmU Works. Enjoy the All-Star festivities. For Ben Barry and Noah, I'm Danny Pommells. We'll see you next time.